Today, conservative Democrats on the Senate Finance Committee, the people who I've called the Conservadems, were forced to pick sides on health reform, and pick sides they did when they joined the unanimous Republicans in voting against two versions of the public option, amendments that would provide one real alternative for Americans who are not served by the lousy, unaffordable, for-profit health insurance industry that we've got now. Democratic Senator Max Baucus explained his decision to vote against the public option with the adult equivalent of the "everyone else is doing it too" excuse.
My job is to put together a bill that gets 60 votes. Now, I can count, and no one has been able to show me how we can count up to 60 votes with a public option in the bill. I don't see that a bill out of this committee with public option gets 60 votes, so I'm constrained to vote against the amendment.
Leadership. I like this idea, but why would I vote for something I like, unless everyone else likes it too? Senator Baucus was not alone. The most conservative of the Conservadems, Ben Nelson of Nebraska, told a home state crowd yesterday that any health reform bill would need not simply a majority of 51 votes or a supermajority of filibustered 60 votes, but according to Ben Nelson, Democrat, health reform should have 65 votes in the Senate, a super-duper majority. Senator Nelson explained, quote, anything less than that would challenge its legitimacy. And so it was that legitimate majority came to mean 65%, up from its original definition of 50 plus 1. So far, as Talking Points memo points out today, you should also know that Senator Nelson won his first Senate term with 51% of the vote. He won his second Senate term with 64% of the vote. So by his own 65% super-duper-duper legitimate majority standard, Senator Nelson isn't really a senator. Not a legitimate senator, anyway. Be careful what you wish for. Joining us now is Howard Dean, former chairman of the Democratic National Committee, former governor of Vermont. Governor Dean, it's great to have you here. Thanks.
Thanks for having me back.
You just heard my interview with Senator Schumer. And he said something that I haven't heard him articulate before, which is that Democratic leadership should be able to expect that even Democrats who are going to vote against health reform should vote for cloture, should vote to end a Republican filibuster, thereby making the threshold 51 votes instead of 60. What's your reaction?
True. A core procedure in almost every legislature I've ever had anything to do with, including the national legislature, is you can vote however you want on the bill. That's a conscience matter, but you owe it to your leadership, who gives you your chairmanship, to vote with the leadership on procedural votes, and a filibuster is a procedural vote. So I would expect all the people caucusing with the Democrats to allow a vote to go forward. And so the chairman's argument is specious. You don't need 60 votes for a public option. You need 51 under any circumstances if the people who caucus with the Democratic Party and owe their chairs to the Democratic leadership are willing to do the right thing.
You're not chairman anymore, but you have worked with a lot of the key players in the upper echelons of the Democratic Party right now. Do they have it in them to insist on that, to insist that all Democrats vote for cloture?
We're going to. Oh, yeah, I think the leader would look terrible if he couldn't get the votes for cloture out of the Democratic caucus. And I think they will support Harry. He's been very good to them, and he's a good leader. But you need 51 votes. The other thing about this is reconciliation. You need 51 votes.
Explain what that is. Reconciliation is a rule.
There's the Senate has a filibuster rule. 60 people can grind. 40 people can grind the place to a halt. You got to get 41. You got to get at least 60 to proceed if folks want to talk it to death. But they also prohibit you from doing that in the budget. And, for example, the Bush's tax cuts went into the budget so that he wouldn't need a 60-vote majority to pass it. And this is a major piece of legislation. It could be passed in the budget. If you wanted to use Medicare to expand the public option and let people under 65 buy into Medicare, which is a really smart idea, because for the Democrats it means you can just get the program up and running by 2010. You could do that in the reconciliation bill with no problem at all, because it doesn't require any new language, and the budget's balanced.
So in terms of, if we believe that the leadership is committed to a public option, seems like option A is get 60 Democrats to vote for it. Option B is insist that Democrats vote procedurally with Democrats, and then you have a 51 vote. You have a 51 vote threshold because you defeated the filibuster. Option C is don't even try for that, just pass it under reconciliation rules.
And they can try option A and B, and if that doesn't work, then they can go to C.
Right.
Look, if the Democrats want this, they're going to get a public option.
Do you think they want it?
I do. Well, I think they do want it. I think they're nervous about it, but 65% of the American people want it. Look, here's the problem problem with these guys. They're stuck. In the more conservative states, there's a lot of venom against it, even though the majority of people want it. And a lot of these guys have taken millions of dollars from the health insurance industry, and they're stuck. And that's a real problem. And if we don't pass this thing, we're going to lose a lot of seats. And if we don't pass, everybody in America now knows that without a public option, this thing is a farce. You're spending $60 billion of taxpayers' money every year to the health insurance industry, who are ripping people off, kicking them off their insurance if they get sick, charging sick people 2 and 3 or 4 times as much as they charge healthy people. What we need is an option so people can choose not to be in that system. And that's what the public option fight is about. Who gets to choose? Does Chairman Baucus get to choose for everybody in America? Or do you get to choose what kind of insurance is best for you and your family? And we are arguing that give the American people the choice. Let us reform health care. We don't trust the politicians to reform health care. Give us the opportunity to do that, and the best way to do that is to give us some choices, like the public option.
If some part of the reason that part of the thing that's blocking political progress on this is that the health insurance industry and the medical industry, the people who profit from the system being broken the way it is now, have essentially lined the pockets of a lot of members of Congress and senators. True. If that is the problem, how do you beat that problem? You can't outspend them retroactively now.
Well, the public doesn't like it, and some of that's going on. Some of the left-wing groups are. Well, I shouldn't say left-wing, because when 65% of the American people want something, it's not exactly.
That's a big wing.
It's pretty. That's what I call the Democratic wing of the Democratic Party, which is bigger than the Democratic Party itself. But the more progressive groups are really upset about this, and I don't blame them, because this is not health care reform. What Chairman Baucus wants to do is not health care reform. And I'm very grateful for Senator Rockefeller and Senator Schumer and for their bills. I take great hope in the fact that Senator Carper and Senator Nelson switched their votes, because that means some form of a public option, however weak, will get out of the Senate, and if that happens, we'll have a public option. But this is not because we want a single payer. This is so the American people have something they can choose between the private sector and the public sector. What they want to do is choose to buy into Medicare. That's essentially what this is, and most 65% of the American people would like that choice.
Howard Dean, former Democratic National Committee Chairman, former Vermont Governor, of course, medical doctor himself. Thank you, sir. It's great to have you here in studio.
Pleasure.
Thanks a lot.